Thanks to SEAL, Escobar was now an internationally wanted criminal. At a Salvation Army halfway house in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a four-man Colombian hit team finally caught up with Barry SEAL. SEAL's death brought the DEA's most important investigation of the cartel to an abrupt and bloody end.
Ending the case prematurely, we were so well entrenched at that point that, in essence, we could have probably arrested 90% of the Medellín Cartel.
There was nothing Escobar feared more than the American justice system, where prison guards cannot be routinely bribed or judges easily intimidated. He used to say, better a grave in Colombia than a cell in the USA.
They had a lifelong fear against extradition, and the ability of the United States to extradite drug traffickers from Colombia to our shores and before our courts became something of a holy grail that they simply had to change at all costs.
To change it, the cartel brought Colombia to a state of virtual civil war. When terrorists acting in league with the cartel kidnapped the justices of the Supreme Court, no honest policeman was safe anymore. Escobar tried to kill this man 8 times. He is General Maza, then head of DAS, Colombia's equivalent of the FBI. Maza can still go nowhere without 2 carloads of armed bodyguards. His friend and colleague, Colonel Jaime Ramirez, needed the same kind of protection because Escobar had never forgiven him for the raid on Tranquilandia.
Pablo Escobar was a paranoid with delusions of grandeur. He was a man without scruples. He fought just as hard against friends and enemies. Pablo Escobar sent a message to Jaime Ramirez that he'd cancelled the contract on his life because he said Jaime was no longer in anti-narcotics and he knew he was only doing his job. Jaime thought he'd keep his word.
For the first time in months, Ramirez felt it was safe to take his family away for the weekend. The story of Pablo Escobar is the story of the modern cocaine industry.
Escobar was to cocaine what Ford was to automobiles.
Compared to Capone and Traficante and Lansky, this guy was way over them, head and shoulders.
Escobar started the cocaine shipments. He started the international transportation.
He organized the drug industry to a point where it was an equal of some of our leading legitimate corporations anywhere in the world.
Government troops were forced to lay siege to the Palace of Justice.
It was Pablo Escobar and the Ochoas who understood that the destruction or intimidation of the judiciary system of Colombia was the first step to taking over the entire country.
The attack on the Palace of Justice came on the very day the Supreme Court was to have ruled on the law of extradition. In the fighting that followed, nearly 100 people were killed, and all the files on extradition cases were destroyed. Pablo Escobar was born in 1949, the son of a peasant farmer and a local school teacher.
El niño me perdió de la casa cuando tenía aproximadamente 2 años.
One day, when he was 2 years old, he wandered away from the house. He was very little, and I found him next to a tree. He had a little stick, and he was playing with a snake. And he was saying, "See, I'm not hurting you." I think he was very sweet, and he loved animals.
When Pablo was 2, his mother left her husband on the farm and went to teach in a city school. Escobar grew up in Envigado, a suburb of the city of Medellín. The people of Medellín have a reputation for working hard, making money, and getting ahead. Pablo was a happy child who loved soccer. At home, the atmosphere was heavily religious.
We have a Christ in the bedroom. It's sad because you can see his blood and it looks real. The bruises and everything they used did to him. I taught the children about all that when they were very little. This made him very sad. Once I served lunch and Pablo put a piece of meat in his corn cake. The corn cake is typical of our province. And he went and said, "Poor man, who made you bleed? Do you want a little meat?" This shows that he was very religious and very kind.